suicide, and we're talking to Dr. CPoe. Dr. Poe, before we had our first commercial break, we promised that we would give you an opportunity to talk about spirituality. I think you've already demonstrated the relationship between spirituality and suicide, but let's talk about spirituality in relationship to suicide.
Okay. Well, spirituality is considered to be one's relationship to God or one's relationship to God by whatever name. Some people refer to God as Allah, some people refer to God as Krishna. The Christian refers to God as the Lord Jesus Christ. So spirituality refers to one's relationship with God, and that doesn't necessarily include any particular religious tradition. We do know, the research does show, that the more spiritually focused a person is, the less likely that person is to harm themselves. And I think that part of the reason for that is that each of us were created by God, and each of us were created with a mandate, I think, to serve God, to obey God, to live a life pleasing to Him. And when we go against God's plan for our life, okay, which is that we practice loving one another as He loves us, one of the consequences is guilt. And guilt unresolved becomes despair. And despair has to do with feelings of hopelessness, helplessness, worthlessness, powerlessness, and oftentimes the wish to die. Now, when a person is in a condition of despair, they very often become depressed. In some cases, they may become paranoid. In other cases, they may develop an anxiety disorder. Almost always, they have very low self-esteem. And that means that they feel very inadequate or inferior. And of course, that adds up to emotional pain. And oftentimes then, persons who are in despair, and because they are in pain, they develop the thought of ending their life because they want to put a stop to the pain. So, but we have to go back and ask the question, well, what caused the despair? What caused the emotional pain? Well, it was the lifestyle. It was their self-centered lifestyle. Now, it is also true that if you're abused, persons who are abused in their childhood, especially sexual abuse, and by the way, there's a high correlation between suicide attempts and persons who have been sexually abused in their childhood, in their adolescence, as well as in their adult life, okay? But let's go back to a major cause of despair then is my own self-centered behavior, my own self-centered lifestyle, and in some cases being abused by other people, okay? On the other hand, just because I've been abused doesn't mean that I'm going to be in despair, because the person who turns to God, even though they've been abused, they can overcome the damage that the abuse has done to them. So it's not necessarily so that if a person has been abused, they're going to attempt or commit suicide, okay? But that does end up being a precipitating factor, that is being abused.
Now, Dr. Poe, when you talk about despair, it seems that you're talking about a progression of